Hi, I just wanted to do a quick review of this Tenma 727780 multimeter. It's basically the same as the Uni-T UT139C, but this is the product they had at Farnell when I was looking for a cheap multimeter, and so I just thought in case anybody was searching for this, I would just give a quick review. But if you want more details, I suggest you search YouTube for the UT139C. So it's a 6,000 count true RMS multimeter. It's pretty cheap. It's about £40 in the UK. I think maybe about the same amount in dollars in the US. If they sell this particular model there. It has quite a lot of features. You got your normal volts, millivolts, which is I guess useful for electronic stuff, which is mostly what I'm going to be using it for. You got your resistance, continuity, diode, and capacitance tests. It's got a temperature probe, which is one of these kind of little sensors with a adapter for this meter. It does, frequency to some reasonable range, the usual current measurements, and actually a quite nice non-contact voltage detector, which is a thing that picks up mains signals. It's surprisingly sensitive. I used to use one of these AC power pens. This is just a cheap B&Q one, but this is way better. So given that these cost like £6 anyway, and if you're going to do any kind of electrical work, you really need something like this to detect mains voltage, then I guess that makes it even better value. It's also got this setting for a clamp meter, but it's not terribly useful because they don't give you a clamp meter, and you can just use the voltage setting anyway, I believe. It's got a backlight, which is you hold this down and it comes on. It's quite a reasonable backlight. I think it goes off after about 10 seconds. It's got manual ranging if that's your bag. Min-max is very basic. And relative mode, which is quite useful if you are want to remove, say, the resistance of leads or measure relative temperature. I mean, it's basically a basic multimeter with some extra features, I guess, compared to a real cheapo one. The ranging's not too bad in terms of speed. I mean, it's it's not in the pro range, but at least it does work, and it's fairly clear what it's doing, which is nice because of the symbols up in the top, which some of the very cheap ones don't bother with. These probes aren't brilliant. They've got these plastic caps on, which I guess is useful if you want to make sure. Well, I guess the reason they're there is for if you're doing high voltage work. I really wouldn't recommend doing high voltage work with this multimeter, but I guess it's useful. I think it's quite useful for electronics if you want to make sure you're not shorting something, but obviously it does make your probe a bit fatter. But they can come off, so it's not a big deal. The probes themselves are, well, they're just ordinary probes, but the cable's quite thick. I think it's 18 wire gauge is written on it somewhere. 18 AWG, which you definitely can't read on this terrible webcam. It says 2000 volts, 80 degrees C. I don't know what these other things are. It says RU AWM 1803 VW-1, whatever that means. Well. So the wires look pretty thick, and I think they'd cope with the sort of 10 amps that they're rated, although I'm no expert to judge that, and I probably wouldn't go up to 10 amps anyway because it's right at the limit of the machine. Anything else worth showing? The only slightly annoying thing is it does beep a lot when you change the mode, but at least it's a reasonably nice beep. The continuity tester beep is, oops, I pressed the hold button by accident. This is the select. Continuity tester is actually quite nice. It doesn't have that scratchy beep. It actually detects and keeps it on, and it's reasonably quick. You know, if you do it like this, it doesn't pick it up, but you touch and it beeps. So it's really it's good enough for most things that you'd want to do with basic electronic stuff. Obviously it's got the amps and milliamps and microamps, which again is really useful if you want to do if you're doing sort of digital electronics. It is rated category 3 600 volts. Now, I mean, to me that basically means you can use it for your basic home electronics if you want to measure check a plug is wired in or something, but I wouldn't stick it in your consumer unit or in your main fuse box or whatever. I think that would be a bad idea. There are lots of reviews on the Uni-T version of this, and certainly people have done tests and it's not it's not going to survive kilovolt spikes and things like that, but if you're just working on something that should be reasonably well behaved, then I think it's okay. And certainly if you're doing reasonable voltage DC, I think it's fine. It's from the outside, it's got quite a nice rubber bumper that goes around. It's fairly standard. I think the kickstand is well, it's just a plastic stand. It does stand up, it rocks a bit, but it's pretty well, I quite like it. It's got these probe holders if you want to keep them tidy, which I think is nice. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think the protection is enormous, but if you're climbing up electricity pylons doing your stuff up there, you want more than a 40-pound meter. Just open it up just so you can see it is the same inside as the Uni-T. This rubber thing comes off with a bit of effort. Just clips on. It's a solid rubber doodad. The battery compartment has a screw here, which I think is let's come a bit more, but I think it's sort of captive in this this battery holding compartment. So it obviously comes with the lovely golden power Chinese batteries, which I have no idea how well they're going to last, but whatever. It's just a couple of AAs, so at least it's not too hard to get the battery. There is a fuse here, which is 600 volt. I can't remember the amperage, but it's the 400 or 600 milliamp. Yeah, 600 milliamp input. Not really sure how you'd get that out without opening up the rest of the case, but there you go. There's two screws in the back here, so which is, I think, fairly standard for these Uni-T type things. These are just self-tapping type screws, or there is a metal thing for the battery compartment. For those of you who are nuts about that, I personally don't actually care that much. I'm unlikely to be opening and closing it. There's a little catch at the top, which just latches in and then it folds down. So here's the circuit board. Again, sorry you can't see it very well on my webcam. There's the bigger fuse, which is sorry, no, this is the small fuse, the 0.6 amp one. This is the 10 amp fuse, which is also rated 600 volts, so that's good. These are the bits that I think exploded when the other reviewer put 5,000 volts through it. But you know, it's to be expected, I think, with this level of quality. The contacts and things look nice. The high amperage current shunt you can't see, but it looks alright. I mean, it looks fine. Generally, the soldering looks okay. I mean, it's just looks like a perfectly adequate multimeter. You know, if you're just wanting to do basic electronics and maybe a little bit of electrical work around the house, you're not going to do something incredibly dangerous. You know, if you're going to do your own electrics, you really kind of have to know what you're doing anyway. So either you know what you're doing and you're not going to stick this in something that's very dangerous, or you don't know what you're doing, in which case you should call an electrician. But yeah, I think it's a handy tool, and certainly if you're thinking, you know, thinking about buying something for, you know, £10 or $10, I think it's well worth it. This is well worth the extra few pounds, even if just for the fact that it has more features, and it's certainly got proper, you know, actual fuses and things like that, which is, you know, nice compared to the real El Cheapo ones that are basically have very little in the way of fusing. My super cheap one that I had prior, you know, didn't have a fuse on the 10 amp setting, so really it meant you couldn't use it for any high current stuff at all. I think that's back together. Let's just check before I put it back in the thing. Yep, brill. And we'll put it back in its little holster. And I think I'll just show off the non-contact voltage thing, which I'll actually need to find something with a so just to show the non-contact voltage sensor and how it works. So here's a switch, and there's the wire runs up the wall here. You can see it's detecting it from a pretty long way away, and I like that it has this different rate depending on how close you are, so you can really see if you're on top of it or if you're close to it. And I mean, I really like this. It's very good compared to the old B&Q pen, which you pretty much have to put right on the thing, and I guess it does pick up the wires here, but you know, you really have to be pushing it right on the wall. So, you know, I guess this works. That's why it's useful. But I just think that this guy is even more useful. So definitely a feature that generally is thought of as being, you know, a complete waste of time feature, but I think actually they've done a pretty good job on this meter. So good for them. So in conclusion, you know, I actually think this is a really good buy for somebody who doesn't want to spend hundreds of pounds or hundreds of dollars on, you know, a real top grade multimeter. It does pretty much everything you could want it to do, and the build quality is certainly adequate, and it has features that are, you know, really useful for everyday, you know, hobby electronics, or you know, if you're doing basic household electrical work, then I think you'd be pleasantly surprised, basically, from a Chinese manufacturer that traditionally hasn't got great reviews, and certainly I think a lot of the real electrical engineering types look down on these very cheap meters. But for those of us that are hobbyists who can't afford a Fluke or Keystone Agilent type thing, then I think this is pretty good, and certainly cheaper than certainly good value.